Hey guys, welcome back to Magic TV. My name's Craig. It is 9 o'clock on a Saturday, which means it's time for a Talk Magic. It is genuinely my favorite time of the week because I get to speak to some incredible magicians from all over the world. And today I'm heading over to Los Angeles and I'm going to be speaking to a gentleman who has such an inspirational story. This is somebody who I became more aware of recently after he invited me onto, I don't want to say too much, but onto a project that he's been running for the last 4 years, 3 or 4 years, that has become just a worldwide phenomenon. But on top of that, this is a gentleman who's a motivational speaker. This is a gentleman who's a magician. This is a gentleman who's performed literally in every environment, and he's got his first book coming out in a matter of weeks. I can't wait for you guys to find out more about him. I am, of course, talking about the legend himself, John Kippen. How you doing, John?
Awesome, Craig. I'm so glad to be here.
Man, I'm really glad to have you on here. Thank you. I know you're very busy. I know you're putting finishing touches to the book on top of a million other things that you do, and you're very in demand as a motivational speaker and a magician and everything else you do. So thanks for finding time to come on here. I really appreciate it.
It's my pleasure.
Amazing. And Talk Magic is all about interviewing people, and especially interviewing magicians that I have a lot of respect for. And even though we've only just met, I have so much respect for you. When you invited me into one of your sessions, and I saw the list of the people that you've had there, and the people that were there, and how much they appreciated how much hard work you put into it. I just realized how much good you're doing for this community. There's some people in this industry that talk about wanting to make magic a better place, and then there's other people that actually do it. And you're somebody who is showing over and over again that you are literally bringing this community together, and the respect that you have for magic is just incredible. It really is. I'm a huge fan, John. I really am.
Thank you so much. I started when my Uncle Milton, I think at 5 or 6, pulled a coin out of my ear. And I was hooked from that point on.
You know what? I was going to ask you. So, for people who haven't met you before, for people who don't know who John Kippen is, I want to talk about your entire career, but I want to start at the very beginning. I want to start with that origin story. I want to start with how you got into magic. So, let's go into it. So, you were 5 years old, and your uncle pulled a coin from behind your ear. What happened then?
Well, he was a New York magician. He was the brother of my grandmother. And so I guess that's great uncle.
Hmm.
And he came into town to visit my grandma and happened to be visiting with her. And he just pulled a quarter out of my ear. I was like, wait, do that again. And I was immediately hooked on magic. And he then sent me a gift on every Christmas and every birthday, which would be a new trick. And I'd open it and I'd learn it. And then the next time he'd come into town, we'd sit for an hour and we'd work on it together. And that went on until he passed away. I don't remember. I think I was about 14 or 15 when he passed. But then I worked in a magic shop for 3 summers in Los Angeles called Magic Emporium.
Oh,
I
that's
would drive down there on my bike and hang out. And finally, the owner said, "If you're going to hang out, I'm going to put you to work." And so I got behind the counter, and every time there would be a new trick, I'd open it up carefully and read the instructions and practice it, and then I demo it for people who wanted to come in and buy magic. So, I was making $5 an hour and loving every minute of it.
And you know what? I'm friends with the president of the Magic Circle over here in the UK, Marvin Burglass, who's obviously owns and runs and founded Marvin's Magic. And him and I were talking a while ago, and he said, and I completely agree with him, one of the ways to become really good as a magician, especially a close-up magician, is to demo in a magic shop. Because
Absolutely.
yeah, if you're doing the same thing over and over again, you learn and you can sell a trick to somebody, then performing at an event, you've got no problem at all, right?
Yeah. I mean, I've forgotten more magic than I know.
Wow.
That's my problem. because I've been doing it for so long.
Well,
I'll buy a trick and put it on the shelf and know the secret because I don't have a presentation for it. And then one morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, I get up with a light bulb idea and I run to the shelf and grab it. And then I work on a routine for it. I'm all about storytelling.
mm, I want to talk to you about storytelling in a bit, but let's carry on with your story into magic. So you're 14 years old, 15 years old, something like that. You're working in the summer in a magic shop. Um, what happened then? Like, what was the goal? Were you doing shows at a young age, or were you just performing socially? Did you want to become a professional magician? Like, what was the goal? You love magic, but was it more of a hobby, or was it an aspiration to become a career?
It was a hobby. I always had a deck of cards in my pocket. Um, I would entertain at holiday parties and kids. I would have kids over from school and I'd do a magic show. And, I didn't perform a lot. I practiced a lot, but I didn't perform a lot. Well, I did, but to my folks, because I'm an only child.
Yeah.
So I didn't have a brother and sister to torture. I mean, to practice on.
Mm,
So, but working in the magic shop for 3 summers was just an amazing experience to be learn concepts.
mm,
So I did some in high school, trying to be popular because I wasn't the jock. I was a theater guy. I was into theater and music, and I played the clarinet and did tech theater, and so magic. It was about performing. It
mm.
was about telling the story as far back as I can remember. Um, Doing a magic trick for a magic trick's sake didn't didn't do it for me. I wanted to make it unique. I wanted to make it meaningful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's so vitally important. That is so vitally important. And I really want to we've had a discussion previously about storytelling and magic, and I really want to delve into that because very few people talk about that. But what happened next in the story then, John? So you were working at the magic shop for 3 years, so till you were about, I imagine, 17 or so. What
Right?
happened what happened then? How
Well,
you know?
this is an amazing story. So I joined. I went to college as a
Mhm,
theater major at Cal State Northridge, and I was very involved politically and
mhm,
within the arts, and I was in charge of their campus theater. And I would wrangle the crew to help produce shows from guest artists that would come to campus.
okay.
And I got a call from my boss saying Doug Henning was coming to the theater to rehearse his last tour. And so I got to work with Doug Henning for a month.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so I'll never forget, I'm a 22-year-old kid who thinks he knows everything. And we loaded the show in, and on the side of the stage was a metamorphosis trunk. And I went up to his manager, who I think his name was Steve Kirshner and I went in and I said, I think I know how to do that trick. And he said, "Oh, you do you? Let's see." So he took the lid off the trunk, and I got in, and he put the lid on upside down and sat on the lid. And
Wow.
when I realized I was trapped, I had to eat some humble pie and knock on the. Can you let me out of here? But so Doug had a session in his show where he did some close up magic. He had a camera and a big video display, and he did his coins across. And Doug used a golden nugget as the thing that attracted the coins from one hand to the other. So that night I went home and I got my coins, and I brought them back and I said, "Mr. Henning, will you help me with my coins across routine?" And every day at lunch we spent 15 or 20 minutes uh, working on my coins across routine. And,
Wow.
and the day we loaded out the show, it was 2 semis full of stuff. I learned how to make cars disappear, animals disappear. It was a true education, and I've been sworn to secrecy. But as we loaded out and he left, The crew was just relaxing behind the theater in the seat shop. And Doug comes running back up. And we stood up, and I'm like, Doug, is there something wrong? He said, no, 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 no. I want you to have this. So this was Doug Henning's golden nugget.
No way.
Yeah. And I immediately went to a jeweler and had them put a little thing on there so I could wear it on a chain. And I've been wearing it since 86, 1986, 87.
That is amazing. What a
Yeah.
fantastic story.
So, magic has been part of my life since I can remember, you know, and another story. So in college, I started a computer consulting company. That's how I make my living.
Yeah.
And an ex-girlfriend's brother worked for Bernie Human, and Bernie was the agent for Siegfried and Roy. And Roy had expressed a desire to learn how to use a computer. So I get a call from Bernie Human asking if I would teach Roy Horn how to use a computer. And so I drove to the airport, and they put me on a plane and flew me to Vegas, and a limo picked me up at their Jungle Palace and took me into this bungalow in the property, which was just set up as an office. So there I am with a laptop and two chairs, and I'm waiting, and all of a sudden in comes Siegfried, in comes Roy. And Siegfried sits across the room in a chair with his arms crossed, laughing his ass off. And Roy sat right next to me. And so I opened the laptop and I started teaching him how to move the mouse. And within 10 minutes, he was like, John, God, I think this is a bad idea. I don't know. And I said, Mr. Horn, a lot of people went to a lot of trouble to bring me here, bring you a laptop, give it a few more minutes. So he did. And then 5 or 10 minutes later, he stopped me. He says, John, I'll make you a deal. I said, what's that? He said, well, if you return the laptop, and I don't care what it costs my company, I'll let you be my guest at the Jungle Palace for the rest of the day. And you'll be our personal guest at the show tonight. I was like, I can't pass that up. Right. So they invited me into their house for lunch, and we had a quick lunch. And then all of a sudden, their head animal trainer comes up and says, okay, John, here we go. And we took a tour of the property where they kept all of their animals.
Gosh.
And at the end of the tour, this other trainer comes up with a baby white tiger cub in her arms. And I was introduced to Manticore. And for those who know the story and don't know the story, Manticore was the white tiger that ended up injuring Roy and ending their show in the
Yeah.
Mirage.
My God.
So it was an amazing day. So then the limo driver drove me back to the Mirage, and I took a nap and then went to the box office to get my ticket. Right? And the stage manager comes and says, John, I'm really sorry. The show is completely sold out. We have given away all our comps. Would you mind seeing it from the booth? And I was like, are you kidding me? I was a theater major. Of course I want to see it from the booth. So I followed her through these sets of hallways upstairs and into the lighting booth, and I'm sitting in a chair right next to her as she's calling the show on her headset. And for those who didn't see the show, the theater was built specifically for the Siegfried and Roy show, and there was a ramp that went from one side of the stage, semicircle, to the other side of the stage. And the really expensive seats were in between the edge of the ramp and the front of the stage. Well, at one point in the show, there's an elephant. That elephant walks across the ramp. And the ramp decided it was time to go. So the elephant raised its tail and dropped. I don't need to be any more specific. Right on the ramp. And so the stage manager saying on the headset, "Oh my God, we got to figure out where we're going to stop the show to clean up the ramp." But before she had a chance to coordinate that, Roy started running from one side of the stage to the other and ended up kicking it into the extensive seats between the ramp and the front of the stage. And the entire audience went nuts. And Siegfried comes to the front of the stage, puts his arms up to quiet the crowd. You could hear a pin dropped, except for the ushers helping these poor crap-faced people off to give them their free room and weekend at the Mirage on the hotel. But he quieted the audience. And in his thick German accent, he says, "Ladies and gentlemen, I am very surprised at you. Everyone knows shit happens." And then the entire audience goes nuts again.
Wow.
So my last Siegfried story. So many years later, I'm performing in the close-up gallery at the Magic Castle. And I'm backstage on a Monday night. And there's a little trap window that the manager will peek in and say, "Are you ready to go on?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Yeah, John, I have a surprise for you." And I said, "What's that?" And he says, "You'll see soon enough." So the manager goes in, the house lights go down, he introduces myself, and my introduction was always, John prefers a short introduction, so there's more time for the magic. And I come through the curtain and I sit down, and there's Siegfried and Princess Irene, who was the founder of the castle's wife, sitting second row. And this is a theater that holds 25 people, so very intimate. So I performed my 20-minute set, and then the audience filtered out, and Siegfried came out and shook my hand. And I said, "Siegfried, do you remember me?" He was like, "Well, it was like 50 pounds lighter, and I had more hair, but I was the guy who came to teach Roy how to use a computer." And his eyes went wide. He said, "That was you? Oh, you got to go and come. You got to join us for dinner." So I went up to the dining room and had dinner with Irene and Siegfried. And then afterwards, I got a picture of me with shaking hands with Siegfried.
Wow.
So as I said, magic just happens to me. I don't know. I can't explain it, you know?
That's an amazing story. I mean,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. Oh my gosh. That's just brilliant. That's got no words. That's fantastic. Um, so I mean, just from those two stories alone, we can all tell you've done some remarkable things through your life. Um, what you talked about setting up a computer company. Obviously, you've been performing magic at the same time. You've been balancing those two. How difficult is it to balance magic, performing magic, especially at places like the Magic Castle? That's phenomenal. Whilst at the same time running a business. I ask that question because I get that all the time on this channel. People that have a job and they're like, "Hey, I want to be a magician. Should I go part-time? Should I go full-time? What should I do?" As somebody who's successfully juggled that their entire life, what do you have any advice?
Well, very few magicians earn enough money to make a living.
Yeah,
And, you're working gig to gig, so you never know when your next gig is, just like an actor.
yeah,
So it's always good to have a fallback.
yeah.
But if magic is truly in your soul and in your heart, you will find the time to do it. Um, you know, uh, as you can tell, the left hand side of my face is paralyzed.
Yeah.
And that happened after a successful brain tumor removal operation.
Okay.
And I found myself hiding from life for almost 12 years because I didn't like the way I looked. I wasn't comfortable in my own skin.
Yeah.
And performing magic and sharing my story of triumph over adversity is what allowed me to heal.
Mm, yeah.
I remember going to my first Magic Live in 2017, and I was amongst the greatest minds in magic. And I said, damn it, I want to take pictures with these great magicians. Because up until then, I never posed for a photograph because I didn't like the way I looked at them.
Yeah.
And the first magician I sat with was Jeff McBride. And I took a picture with Jeff. And then throughout the rest of the week, I took pictures with everybody. And I got home and I uploaded the photos to my computer, and it dawned on me of these great minds in magic had no trouble taking a picture with me.
Hmm.
What was my problem? And that was the beginning of my healing.
Wow. Wow. I mean, that's incredible advice, John. It really is. And which brings me on to the subject of you as a motivational speaker. So you are a motivational speaker. You probably do that as much, if not more, of that than magic. Like, where did that come from? Where did that come from as a result of the brain tumor and having this realization, or was it something that you did beforehand?
As a council magician, I had the opportunity to meet lots of people.
Yeah.
I think for the first 14 years of my membership, I probably performed 6,000 close-up shows because I could sit at a green table and audience would come in, I would perform.
Yeah.
But people would look at me, look at my face, and they'd wonder, did he have a stroke? Did he have Bell's palsy? So I started incorporating the story of why my face is paralyzed into my act. And I would say, guys, my name is John. I'm a magician. I've been doing it since I was 6. But in 2002, I had a brain tumor. Now, when they removed the brain tumor, they traumatized my facial nerve. But something else happened to me when I was on the operating room table. Now, I'm not sure what it was because I was unconscious. All I know is I recovered. I realized I had acquired some new awarenesses. And then I look left and right like it's the biggest secret. And I say, guys, I am able to visualize people's thoughts. So then I do some mentalism and I have people hooked. People don't know, is he pulling our leg? Is he telling the truth? I don't say I'm able to read minds.
Mm.
I say I'm able to visualize people's thoughts.
Mm.
So anyway, so I would run into people and I become very empathetic in my life, going through what I've gone through in my life. I
Yeah.
can sense when someone is weighed down with something.
Yeah.
And I would go to the castle to do nothing other than entertain.
Wow.
I would see a show here and there, but my goal was just to entertain and bring joy to people.
Mm.
And I have a half a dozen stories, which you can read in my book, about how I inspired people to heal, to get out of their own way, to accept their bodies as they are and not the way they used to be.
Mm.
I'll tell you one quick story. So I'm upstairs and there's a woman walking down the hallway and she's wearing clothes that are baggy, black clothes, wearing a hat that reminded me of a witch's hat. And she approached. I said, "Hi, how are you?" She stopped and she gave me this look like, just leave me the heck alone. And continued walking down to catch up with a group. So I
Hmm.
followed her. And I caught up with the group and I said, guys, you having a good time? And they're like, oh, this is amazing. I said, yeah. But have you seen any really good close-up magic? And they just shrugged their shoulders. I said, come on. So we went over to one of those green tables. And the woman who was dressed in baggy black clothes, her name was Darren. And I
Okay.
put her to my right. And I made the show about her. Every magical moment in my routine I made because she did something. And within 2 minutes, all of a sudden, she's sitting up straight and she ditches the hat and she started smiling. And I could see her eyes start to sparkle. And I could tell whatever baggage she brought with her was gone. And we made this connection. And at the end of the show, normally audiences would thank you, they clap, they shake my
Yeah.
hand, and they move
Yeah.
on. But this group wanted more. So I shared the story about how I had hid from cameras and mirrors for over 12 years after my brain surgery. But it was going to Magic Live and meeting all these great magicians and taking photos with them that made me understand that my facial paralysis didn't need to define me if
No.
I didn't let it. So I
That's
shared that story with the group, and Darren stood and she motioned for me to stand, and I did. And she gave me one of these bear hugs that you don't soon forget. It's like she hadn't seen her brother in 20 years kind of hug.
yeah.
And it seemed to go on for minutes, but it was probably 30 seconds. And she stood back and she had tears in her eyes. And she said, John, I need to share something with you.
Mhm.
4 years ago, I had a double mastectomy. We had the BRCA1 gene. And my mom, my aunt, my sister, they all had their breasts proactively removed. And I was the last in the family to do that.
Wow.
When all of a sudden I realized, I sat there knowing that my friends drugged me to the castle. I didn't want to be out
Hmm.
in public because I didn't like the way I looked. And all of a sudden I realized how much fun I was having. And then I heard your story about how you were able to put your facial paralysis in perspective and celebrate your differences as opposed to hide from it. It made me understand that I've been hiding too for the last 4 years by the baggy clothes I wear and the funny hats and not
Wow.
making eye contact. And literally, there, she made a promise to herself with her friends and I as witnesses that that would be the last night she would hide.
Wow.
And at that point, I realized my true mission in life was to speak, to use magic as a vehicle to allow people to find their inner joy and their inner magic. And whatever their passions are, have them incorporate whatever their passions are into their daily lives
Yeah.
so they can be memorable. And so that's how I became a motivational speaker.
Wow. That's incredible. And is there any advice you have for somebody who's a magician that wants to start doing motivational speaking as well? Is there a niche that you have to focus on? Is there a process you have to go through? Like, what would you say? Somebody wants to add an extra string to their bow as a magician and they want to
Yeah,
go on that route. Is there a way to do it or
it's hard. I think that for a working magician who gigs a lot,
yeah.
does a lot of private parties, you're going to find yourself among people who have businesses that hire speakers. And you just got to put it out there. You got to say, oh, by the way, you can hire me for a party, but if you want a little of my mojo, a little bit of my magic through my storytelling, you can hire me as a speaker.
Yeah.
You can't force it. There's way too many speakers out there. You
Yeah.
know, magicians, speakers who use magic to illustrate their points and engage the audience there are not that many of us, but there's still probably 50 of us competing for a lot of work. So that would be my advice. Just let it come naturally. If you're really committed to it, opportunities will knock. The key is recognizing the opportunity and grabbing it by the horns.
Yeah.
You
Wow.
know,
Yeah. I mean, that's fantastic. That's fantastic. And you talk about how, there's very few people that infuse magic and a message. How have you been able to do that? Like, what do you start off with? Okay, this is the message I want to portray. Now let's look for a magic trick, or do you find a magic trick and go, this would be perfect to illustrate this point?
so my tagline is being different
Mm.
is your superpower. And that's the title of my keynote speeches. And I do a Wellington mirror in my act. And for those who don't know, you can Google it. Doug Henning did it on a special in the 70s. And it's a wooden frame with a mirror in it that you can take and pass out the mirror for inspection. And then you put it back in the frame and you knock on it to make sure it's solid. And then you put it in a knitted bag. And so I talk about that when I was recovering from my brain surgery, I got rid of all the mirrors in my house, except for this one mirror, because the surgeon told me once a month or so, try to smile and see if there's any kind of recovery going. So I take that mirror out of the bag and I angle it so that the audience is looking in the mirror to see my face.
Yeah.
And I try to smile, contorting my face, trying to smile. And then I get frustrated. And out of my pocket, I take a comb. It's a metal comb with one of those little tails on it.
Yeah.
And I use that to actually tap on the glass to make sure it's solid. And then
Yeah.
I put the mirror back in the bag. And then I say, darn it, I don't want to be afraid of my reflection anymore.
Mhm.
So then I take the comb and I pass it through the mirror, through the knitted bag. And then
Wow.
when the mirror is in the bag, I actually bend the mirror in half. And I say, I realize that my reflection doesn't need to reflect who I am on the inside. And as my self confidence is restored, so is the mirror. And I pull the mirror back out of the bag and it's in one piece.
Wow. That's powerful.
The other illusion I do is with a light heavy box. And it's a little crystal 4-inch square box.
Right.
And before the show, I have little cards that are on 2 or 3 rows of seats, depending on how many people in the theater. And it has a place for their initials and a place for them to write down a limiting belief. So I
Okay.
ask the audience, okay, take a minute or two and write down a limiting belief. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not good enough. Whatever they happen to be, I'm not smart enough. And then I have a spectator collect and bring them up on stage. And I take the box and I put it on the table and I lift the lid to this clear box. And I have them put all of these cards, 20, 30 of them, in this box and I put the lid on. And then I say, imagine now all of you who wrote down your limiting belief, they're gone. And you're no longer being weighed down by those limiting beliefs. Now the box is being weighed down. And I have that spectator now try to lift the box. And they can't because the box is too heavy with all of their limiting beliefs. And then I
Wow.
pull the lid off and I start taking their limiting beliefs out and I read their initials and their limiting belief. CT, your limiting belief is, you know, you don't have enough hair or whatever. And I have a little paper shredder and I shred all the limiting beliefs. And when I'm done, I put the box lid on and I say, now lift the box. And they're
Mm.
able to lift it. It's light as a feather. And so
God.
I use that illusion as a metaphor. Um, and I get people crying after I do that.
I can imagine. Like that's super powerful. Wow. That's great. And talking about this, motivational speaking is all about telling stories and making yourself um letting people see the real you. As you've mentioned a couple of times now about storytelling and about the importance of storytelling in magic. And I agree. I'm not the best storyteller in the world. I try, and I do okay, but I'm no Eugene Berger, put it that way. Although I don't think anybody's a Eugene Berger.
No, not at all.
But as somebody, yeah, and it's something very few people talk about. But as somebody who is very passionate about storytelling in everything that they do, can you give some advice on how to craft a story? How to make it connect to an audience, why they should do that as opposed to just doing it a normal way. If we could talk about that for a minute, that'd be great.
What separates the great magician from the good magician is when the magician lets the audience in to who they are as a human being.
Mm.
So when you talk about things that you're passionate, I have a routine where I like 100, 500, where I turn monopoly money into real money. And I
Okay.
talk about spending weekends with my family, playing board games. And one Sunday, I won, but my mom still made me put all the money away and all the pieces and so forth. And then I have all this money, and I'm remembering that my dad would have a lot of money in his wallet. So I imagined, well, maybe if I grabbed some of these $100 Monopoly bills and stuck them in my wallet, I could feel like my dad, you know?
Mm.
And so I pulled this Monopoly money out of my wallet. And I tell the story about how I spent really great Sundays playing board games with my parents. And the dream of being able to go out and buy a bike or buy wacky packs, which were, fun little stickers when I was a kid, or
Yeah.
baseball cards
Yeah.
with Monopoly money. And then as I in my story, I say, well, as I realized as I left the house, I remembered the um, that monopoly money. If you leave the money when I convert the monopoly money into real money, right? And I
Yeah.
have a 5, 20, 50, and 100 and a $500 bill, and then I convert it to similar currency. And my end line was, yeah, but if I could do that for real, it would be called counterfeiting, and I'd end up going to jail. And no 7-year-old wants to go to jail. So all of a sudden, the monopoly money returns.
Wow.
And, another thing, I carry that trick wherever I go. And when I speak, normally someone introduces me. And for any public speaker out there, warming up the audience and getting the audience in your corner, wanting to listen to what you have to say, takes time. So before the MC of the evening goes out to introduce me, I do that trick for them. And their reaction is like, holy
Mm.
cow, you just turned monopoly money into real money. And
Yeah.
now they go out stage and they introduce you and
Mhm.
they're jazzed. They're excited. They even
Mm.
tell John, say, audience, I just met this guy backstage and he did an amazing illusion. He turned monopoly money into real money. So get ready to really enjoy this next speaker. And I walk out on stage, and now the MC has done all the work for me. I've warmed up the crowd, and now they're interested what I'm going to do,
That's
how I'm going
brilliant.
to impress on them. And it's just doing a simple trick a minute or two before they go on to introduce you because their enthusiasm comes across.
Yeah, that makes sense. Wow. I hope people realize that what's happening here is they're getting a masterclass. This is brilliant. This is absolutely fantastic. Okay, so what made you decide to write the book? You have been in magic your whole life. You performed at a very high level. Um, you obviously have the brain tumor. You've come to accept that. You're a motivational speaker. You're using your storytelling ability along with your experiences in life to put across a message that you feel is important. You're busy. You got your computer company. You're doing all this motivational speaking. You're doing magic. It's not like you're wanting for work. What makes you decide to say, you know what, I'm going to write a book? And I'm dyslexic, so that's not the easiest thing in the world for somebody to do. Like, what? Where did this idea come from?
My magic and my ideas have changed lives. And writing a book allows me a much bigger reach, allows me to share these stories that I'm telling you and your audience today amongst dozens of other stories. I have a theme, which is the card to impossible location, but I take it to a totally different level.
Okay.
And I can tell that story if you want.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
so I was at the castle one Monday night, and it was late. It was like 11:30 at night, and the palace show, the big show, let out. And this couple comes and sits down at a table right outside the palace. And this guy looked really familiar, but I couldn't place him. So I did my routine, and he was with his fiance. Her name was Robin, and I performed a signed card to wallet, which I always would have in my show.
Okay.
And then after my show, the gentleman introduced himself as Paul Zerden. Now,
Wow.
Paul won America's Got Talent
Yeah, incredible.
2015,
Yeah.
and he was there on a Monday night because they were dark in Vegas on Mondays to visit someone who was performing. And they just saw me sitting at a table with no one there and came over and I performed for them. And we talked for a couple hours. And then finally a manager tapped me on the shoulder and says, John, it's time to go. So Paul, and he was with his fiance at the time, Robin, and they told me that they were heading back to their hotel. They're going to take a nap, shower, and change because they had a rehearsal at Planet Hollywood at around 12:30 the next day.
Oh, yeah.
So I got in my car and I get this idea. So I drive home. Well, let me back up for a second. So when Robin gets to the dressing room at the Planet Hollywood Hotel the following day around noon, she
Right.
looks at the dressing room mirror and sees her signed card on the dressing room mirror. And this is 10 or 11 hours after she had left the castle. And
Wow.
I didn't drive to Vegas. So I share how I do, I don't reveal secrets very often, but this lesson of this story is if you want something badly enough, miracles happen and you can make it happen. And you can invest other people in the success of your dreams. So I get home and I get this idea. And I look up Paul's agent, and he works for an agency called CAA in New York. And I email the agent with what I want to do. And then I go to sleep, hoping that when I wake up, there'll be an email back from the agent, right?
Yeah.
I get up, there's no email. I'm bummed. So I Google and I figure out that Planet Hollywood's entertainment is run by the same guy who runs Harrah's Entertainment. So I called the Harrah's Hotel and I asked for the entertainment director. And this guy answers the phone. He answers his own phone. And I introduced myself and I said, I've got something I want to do for Paul, and this is my idea. And the entertainment director said, John, I love your idea, but I can't help. You see, AGT has their own crew, their own director. We just rent the space. But I'll give you the name of the director and his assistant's name and number. Give her a call. Maybe she can help. So I hung up, got on the phone, and I called the assistant. Now she's some 20-something who doesn't understand the significance of the magic I'm trying to do, right?
Yeah,
Because
exactly.
if I had put the card in a FedEx and FedExed and it got there next day, it would not be nearly as effective as it being there when they got to the hotel at noon the next day. But she doesn't understand. But she said she'd tell the director my idea. Well, 10 minutes later, the phone rings. And the assistant says, okay, I talked to the director. He loves your idea. If you get the card to the box office at Planet Hollywood, I'll have a crew person take it, put it on the mirror, and send you a picture of it on the mirror. I'm like, all right. And then I look at my watch and it's 10 a.m. Rehearsal starts in 2 hours. So I threw on some clothes and got in my car with the card in hand and drove to Burbank Airport, which is a regional airport in LA. And
Right.
it's one of those airports that you walk out on the tarmac and you climb a set of stairs to get into the plane, right?
Yeah.
And as I'm getting out of my car at the counter to counter section where you ship stuff, mind you, this is post 9/11, where you need 10 forms of ID and, All I had left my wallet at home. So all I had was the money that was in my center console and a picture of my ID on my phone. So I walk into this room, very narrow room with uh, bulletproof glass and a little slot. And then behind him are a set of double doors out to the tarmac. And I knew if I was going to make this happen, I needed to get the guy behind the window invested in the success of this magic trick. And so I described, and I said, put yourself in the shoes of Paul Zerden. You meet this guy, he has his girlfriend or a fiance, sign a card, and the next thing you know, you're in Vegas in a casino in a dressing room, and the card's on the mirror. And the guy looks around, makes sure we're alone. He goes, give me the card. And I slipped it through the slit in the window, and he took the card, and he put it in an envelope and sealed it. And he wrote a note on the back of the envelope and said, wait here. And then he goes out onto the tarmac and climbs the stairs to an outbound Southwest jet bound for Vegas. And he handed the envelope with the note to a flight attendant. And he comes down. And I got my car and I called a courier service. And for $50, I hired a courier to pick up the card at the airport and drive it to the box office. I got there 10 minutes before rehearsal started.
Wow.
You know, taking an idea, the best magic happens when the magician is nowhere around.
Yeah.
You know, I used to do another thing with the signed cards where long before Uber and Lyft existed, I would have someone sign a card, and then I would pick the husband or boyfriend of the woman who signed the card, and I'd have them think of a random 3-digit number.
Okay.
And then I had someone think of a random playing card, another person think of a color or something. And at the end of the routine, I've successfully predicted all three things. But when I present the 3-digit number to the gentleman, I say, you know, sir, I want to make it really random. Hey, did you drive here tonight? And almost always they would say, yeah. Well, you must have a valet ticket in your pocket. Let's use the last 3 digits of that valet ticket because no one ever pays attention to the last 3 digits. And certainly I couldn't know what they are.
Yeah.
So now when I reveal that 3-digit number through a method I'm not going to reveal, but many of you know about the principle that I'm thinking about.
Yes.
So now I've got her signed card, right? His wife's signed card. So I go to the valet and I give the valet a tip. Say, do me a favor, go to car 335 and take the signed card with my business card and stick it in the passenger side visor in the makeup mirror and just leave it there. So the next time they're going out on town and she goes to fix her face, right?
Yeah.
She pulls it down and opens the mirror and the card floats into her lap.
Wow. How
And
powerful.
this sometimes happens months later. It's just sitting there waiting for someone to lower the visor and open the little makeup mirror.
Wow.
I mean, I've had people come back to the castle looking for me just to say thank you and ask how the heck I got into their car and did I follow them home and you know.
You
So
know, it's very difficult to create a trick where the magic happens after the magician has finished with them.
well,
That's
most magicians want the instant gratification of the acceptance, the applause, the
yeah,
smiles, the pats on the back, the thank yous. And that's all great and well, but that's not what real magic is.
no,
Real magic is having it happen when you're nowhere, they've forgotten about you.
yeah,
You're not in their mind. And all of a sudden, the magic happens. I have another story in the book about how a group of girls was at the castle and they were curious about my face because they were med students. And
right,
so I shared the whole story, and one of them named Courtney had signed the 4 of diamonds, I think it was. No, 8 of clubs. 8 of clubs. And on their way out of the castle, I overheard one of them say to the other, "Can we stop by the In-N-Out Burger on Sunset on the way back to UCLA?" They were all in the dorms. So I went out the back door and I got in my car and I waited for them to come out of the castle. And then they come out 5 minutes later, all buzzed, having a good time, and they start driving. I follow them. And they're so excited they don't even notice me. But sure enough, they go right towards the In-N-Out Burger on Sunset, and I'm in the drive-through right behind them. And when I get the window to pay for my order, I hand the lady a $10 bill for her trouble. I said, "Do me a favor, run over there and put their assigned 8 of clubs in their In-N-Out bag." So these girls get the In-N-Out bag. I drive this way. I drive home. The next morning, I'll wake up to a post on my Facebook page. WTF. How did our assigned 8 of clubs get in our In-N-Out bag? You know, they tell that story at every function because it's impossible. So fast forward 6 or 7 months, I was at a sushi bar having lunch with a friend, and I'm just dressed in regular a polo shirt and jeans. And there's a guy next to me, and he's eyeing me, and I get stared at a long time, all the time because of my face. I don't care. But he reaches over and he says, "Sir, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but are you the In-N-Out magician?" He had heard the story from a friend of one of the girls who was there that night. And we
Wow.
heard me talking about magic and then saw my face. He put 2 and 2 together and said, "That's got to be the guy."
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, listening to all of the stories that you're telling, you've had such an amazing journey through magic. You know, a lot of people could go their entire career without even getting one moment like that. And you've told us about so many different things that have happened.
If you go to johnkippen.com, all of these stories are there amongst a lot of other content. But one of my proudest moments when one of my favorite celebrities, Alex Trebek, came out on national television and said that he was fighting pancreatic cancer. I had dealt with people fighting cancer, and I am no healer, but I have the ability to get people to forget about their disease for at least an hour.
Yeah, which is
The purpose of all
really
the art
important
forms,
skill. Yeah,
the purpose of art is to captivate someone enough so that they forget about their troubles.
yeah,
So
definitely.
I found Alex's daughter and I reached out to her and I said, "I need to perform for your dad." And I invited them to be my guests at the castle. And they said, "No, Alex doesn't want to be but we're having a birthday party and we have no entertainment. So if you want to be our performer, you can do that." So I wrote a brand new 45-minute show just for that event. And I did a Jeopardy trick, um, which basically I have a deck of cards face up, face down, it's shuffled together. And it's the prediction. I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's but now I have visual aids, right? Which are the blue background with the white letters. And I'm like, "Alex, do what you do best. Read the answer. 27 face down cards." And then we start counting, and it's 27 face down cards. And then I turn the next page, and he reads the clue. It says 12 red cards. And Alex starts going and counting the 12 red cards. And then I turn the last page, and it says Final Jeopardy. And I ask for a random 6-digit number, 5-digit number from the audience, and I write it down. And then I turn to the last question, and it says all the black cards are clubs. And they start going through, and Alex sees one card that's not a club. It's the ace of spades. And he literally takes the ace of spades and smiles and puts it in my face and goes, "Uh-huh, uh-huh," as I turn the last page, and it says, "Except for the ace of spades."
Wow. That's
And the
amazing.
video of me doing that trick live for Alex Trebek is on my website, along to a card, signed card to wallet that he did for his daughter, where he actually literally started beating on me out of frustration. You
Wow.
know, and that wouldn't have happened if I didn't make it happen. I live my life. It's better to ask for forgiveness and permission.
Yeah, I do exactly the same thing, John.
And it's bit me in the ass numerous times. It got me suspended from the Magic Castle because I broke some rules and let some guests in through a back door because I was so excited to perform for them. And the castle decided to make an example of me. But you don't, these kind of opportunities, you have to make happen for yourself. No one's going to hand you these kind of opportunities.
Or not.
But you
It's
go to
like
bed.
that old expression, isn't it? There's two types of people in this world: people that watch things happen and people that make things happen. Yeah, and you're definitely the sort of person that makes things happen, John.
Yeah. There are no limits. Well, what's up here?
Yeah,
It's those beliefs that we have, that we got from our parents or whoever raised us, that we cling on to because they're convenient, they're comfortable.
they are. Yeah,
But stepping out of your comfort zone is so crucial for growth. But some amazing experiences can happen in your life by just saying, I don't care what people think. I don't care that my face is paralyzed. I don't care that I'm overweight or I got a big nose. There's more to me than the physicality. There's more to me than a lisp or a speech impediment or whatever. If you use what you're passionate about and you make your magic about those things that you're passionate about,
yeah,
you cannot help but engage the audience. And they don't exactly know what it is, why they learn to love you. They just sense this power that you have. And all they know is they want some of that power for themselves. I teach magicians,
yeah.
and I have magicians come to me all the time. And it's funny, they'll come to me and I have a theater in my backyard that I built. So they come to my house, we go into my theater, and the first thing they do is they reach into a bag and they pull out a deck of cards. And the first thing I say is, oh, I'm sorry, we won't be using those today. Oh, okay, great. And then they reach it back and they pull out their coins. And I smile and I laugh and I say, no, 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 we won't be using those either. And they look at me like, what the heck am I doing here? And I'm like, no, 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 no. We're going to find out who you are. We're going to discover what you want the audience to learn about you as a human being. We're going to talk about those really fun moments in your life. And then we're going to craft magic around those stories because that is what's going to make you memorable. Is going to make you stand out amongst the millions of magicians out there.
Wow.
So those are some of my secrets.
I gotta tell you, John, anybody who's listening to this is getting a masterclass in branding, in creating a character, in putting yourself out who you are. It's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I don't have a character. It's just an exaggerated version of
Yeah.
myself.
But I want to talk, I think this is a nice segue point, a nice transition point to move on to the book. So can you tell me a little bit about it? When is it coming out? When is it dropping? Where is it going to be available from? What's the content of the book? Who is it suitable for? Can you go through some of that stuff? Would that be okay?
It's called Playing the Hand You Are Dealt. Now, I'm
Okay.
a poker player, so it's got the poker reference. It's got the overcoming adversity reference.
Yeah.
My hope is that it'll be released on December 1st, Sunday, December 1st, which is the busiest shopping day of the year, being part of Thanksgiving weekend.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about writing this book, and I started writing it 4 or 5 years ago, and then I got frustrated and put it away. And then
Okay.
recently, I've been working with a great magician named J. Scott Berry, and he's
Well, I
become
mean,
a
he's
really
an
close friend of
absolute
mine.
legend, isn't he, J. Scott Barry?
And he's John, I love your stories. You captivate me every time we get together. You need to put these down in a book, and I'm going to help you write this book. I'm going to help you lay it out. We can brainstorm together. And writing a book with a partner is so much easier than doing it by your by yourself. So the book is a memoir filled with stories like I'm talking to you guys about today. And I'm a theater geek, right? So there are no chapters in the book. There are acts and scenes.
Mm,
And so the introduction is my overture. There's an
nice.
intermission where I teach everybody how to do a magic trick. I teach everybody how to take a business card or a credit card and literally make it float. Because when you hand out your business card at that point, for people who still use business cards, or you hand out your credit card to a server, all of a sudden now you're memorable. They're never going to forget the way you presented your business card.
No, they're not.
And people are going to put it in their pocket or they're going to stick it in their desk drawer. They're not going to throw it away. They're going to
Mm,
keep it because they saw it do magic. So the next time they're like, hey, I need a magician. Hey, wait a minute. I got his card right here.
yeah.
You don't know how many gigs I've gotten because they kept my card. They didn't remember my name, but they kept my card because they saw it do magic.
Mm,
So I teach that in the intermission. And there are, I think, 30 QR codes throughout the book. So as you're reading, all of a sudden you come up with a QR code. And then you take your phone or your tablet or whatever and you scan the QR code. It takes you into a private area on my website with
wow.
all the multimedia videos of me performing for Alex and me being interviewed by Joshua J doing my version of Balance at Magic Live in 2017 and his saying, okay, I like your version better than mine. And just all sorts of amazing illusions that
Mm,
I've taken other people's magic and incorporated it together, but made it all my own. And
yes.
then, I did something about 10 years ago that I wanted to study audience reactions, right?
Okay.
But when you videotape your performance, the video is focused on you as the performer and the two people sitting on your left and right. But those two people on your left or right know they're being videoed. So the reactions are tempered. But the audience has no expectation of being videoed. So I rented a VR camera and I put it on the front 2 rows. And I filmed the entire show in VR.
Mm,
And there's a link on my website that allows you to go to YouTube. And you are now in the front row of that theater watching me perform. But
wow.
with your mouse, you can turn around and look at the audiences as you hear me talking. You can look at the audience reactions in real time and see if an illusion is hitting, if things are going over people's heads, how they're responding, whether or not they're whispering to their neighbor or whether or not they look bored. It
Yeah.
is an amazing
Right.
tool. Magicians have a set of folding mirrors, that they use to figure out their angles.
Yeah.
But doing that in a live performance, I bought myself a security DVR early on. Instead of using the mirror, I would have gooseneck mic stands with 5 different cameras and I put them all around me. And then I would film my performance. So then I could go back And it automatically had little quadrants on the screen of each different angle. And I could play it and watch it from this angle and this angle and this angle and this angle. And that's what prompted me to say, hey, maybe I can adopt this VR technology. Back then, this camera I rented because it was $6,000. Now you can buy them and they're $200 or $300, and they're the size of an iPhone.
Mhm.
But being able to see your audience reactions in real time, you learn so much about what affects work, what they don't, whether or not your timing is right on.
Yeah.
It's and that VR video is on YouTube, and there's a link to it where you can literally sit front row center at the close-up gallery and watch me perform.
I've never heard anyone else do that before. That's
No, and I don't know why, because the technology exists. I think Johnny Ace Palmer tried it once.
right.
There have been a couple of magicians who have done it, but I use it as a tool to be able to really sense if illusion works or not.
Wow, that's great. So, how much is the book going to be? Will it be available only through yourself? Will it be out through other magic dealers?
It'll be 20. I think it's going to be $24.95 US. I don't know what that is in pounds, euros, francs, but it will be. I'm self-publishing it through Ingram Spark, where
Yeah,
all of the big booksellers buy their books.
yeah.
We're Target and Barnes and Noble, and then once it's released through them, I'll release it through Amazon Publishing. So you'll be able to buy it on Amazon and have it the next day or 2 days later because they print on demand.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's 220 pages. It's
Wow.
filled. It's filled with inspirational quotes, and at the back of the book, there's an appendix which, number one, for those who are scared about scanning a QR code because they don't know where it's going to take and because of all the cybercrime, there's a list of all of the QR codes, what they are, and the URL that you can actually type in to get there.
Okay.
And then there's a collection of all of the quotes from all of these great thinkers in the back of the book. So you don't
Wow.
have to go thumbing through. I remember that quote that John wrote about, but I don't remember where it is. You don't have to worry about it. Just go to the back of the book, and there they are, laid out on 3 pages. All of these great thought-provoking quotes.
That's great.
I even went as far as meeting with my estate planning attorney, and I added to my will that after I pass, hopefully not for 20 or 30 years, but someone will be responsible for maintaining the website.
Oh, that's great.
So that no matter how many years it is, because these messages that I talk about are universal. They existed 100 years ago and they're going to exist 100 years in advance because it's tall. I have these pearls of wisdom, I call them, talking about how to tame your inner voice and how to overcome adversity and how to present yourself as someone who's interesting and how to engage people. So all of these lessons, um, they're all common sense. I've just collected these all from my experience of overcoming my own adversity, and I put them down in this book.
Yeah.
So I hope people will buy this book
I
and
think they will.
and
I think it'll be very
keep it
popular.
by their bedside because there are it's an amazing journey.
And you know what? It's refreshing to see a book come out to the magic community that's not just a collection of tricks.
Absolutely not. It's stories about illusions, and it's the only methods I reveal are ones for my impossible card to location, impossible location. And it's just
Yeah.
talks about thinking outside the box, how to be a creative thinker, how not to let your mind get in your way.
Yeah.
And just to take action before you let the little voice in your head convince me, oh, that'll never work.
Yeah.
One of the motivational speakers I follow is Mel Robbins, and she has something called the 5 second rule. And the idea of the 5 second rule is that when you get up out of bed, if you count 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and you get up and you just start doing what you need to do that day, you don't give your brain time to come up with excuses why, oh, you can go back to bed for an hour. Oh, why you can sit on the couch and watch TV. It's an amazing exercise on just being productive and getting stuff done,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah.
So
Wow. And, you know, what I'm trying to say is that it sounds, there's very few books that, like I said to you, there's very few books that cover this sort of thing specifically for magicians. So, what type of magician that's watching this now that's thinking, you know what, that sounds like a good book. That's something I want to get. What type of magician would get something? Is it for everybody? Is it for professionals? Is it for hobbyists? Is it for people that aspire to be a professional or a motivational speaker? Is it, is it a subject matter that would work for people that just have a passing interest in magic? Like, who's the subject matter? Who's the best?
the
Who's
answer to your question is yes. It's for
everyone?
everybody
Everyone.
because it the messages are universal.
Mm.
Just because magic is my vehicle to inspire people to get out of their own way, to think creatively, to think outside the box, I don't reveal tricks. I reveal a way of thinking,
Mm.
a way of finding joy in your life, no matter what your passion is, using that passion to present yourself to friends, family, acquaintances. So wow, this guy is really cool. He's interesting. I want to learn more about him. I want to spend more time with this guy.
Mm.
He's attractive and not in a physical way, but there's something about him that's so unique that I'm finding myself mesmerized by his stories just listening there. And the moral is that we all have that power to turn our mess into our message, to take our stories and incorporate them into our everyday existence when
Yeah.
dealing with people.
Yeah.
All we have in life is our relationships with others.
That's very true.
That's the only thing. I share the story. So during the pandemic, right? Castle closes, the world closes. I'm stuck at home. I live by myself with my dog, and I was lonely. So I started a game. I call it Rolodex Roulette. Now, for those of you guys who were not born in the last, were
Mm-hmm.
born in the last 25 years, Rolodex is a
Going to be
spindle,
somebody who
you
has
know,
no idea what a Rolodex is right now. Yeah.
Rolodex is the spindle thing that's got these little cardboard cards, and you staple a business card, you write down someone's name and number and address on it, and they're in alphabetical order. Well, everybody's today, their Rolodexes are their contact list in their phone.
Yeah.
So the way you play it is you open your contacts and you scroll blindly without knowing, and you stop on a name, and that's who you call that day. Just to say, hey, Greg, I was playing this game. I learned from my friend John, and I landed on your name. How are you? How are things? How are you coping with pandemic, or what's going on? You know, and a side effect. We all have those people in our address book that we've had falling out with. You know, someone that we lost connection with, and we don't even remember why, but we don't want to be the person to mend that bridge, right?
Yeah.
Well, this game gives you a reason to call them. So I say, for a sudden you and I had a falling out, which I hope never happens. But I'd say, Craig, now before you say anything, I'm just playing my friend John's game called Rolodex Roulette, and I ain't landed on your name. And the game's rules are I've got to call that person. And how are you? How have you been? And what it does is it disarms the other person because no one wants to be the person to take that bold move and mend that fence.
No.
But playing the game gives you that plausible deniability.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of friendships mended because we got to talking and all of a sudden we realized our argument was just so stupid. It was silly. We apologized to each other and we grow as human beings through it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Another thing I did
Wow.
when the pandemic hit, right? I spent 12 to 15 years learning how not to hide my face. And then March 2020 happened. And now hiding your face became not only politically correct, but government mandated. And I immediately reached out to a mask company and I sent them a picture of my face. And I had them print a picture of my mouth on the mask.
Wow.
And I would wear that in public, and strangers would look at it and just walk away. But people who knew me would look at it and do a double take. And without me having to say a word, they would immediately understand John has made the conscious decision never to hide again.
Wow. Wow.
You
That's
know, it's just
powerful, John.
thinking about stuff like that is what brings me joy, gets me excited, gets me animated. And those are all stories and hundreds more in this book
Yeah.
that I share from my journey of living on this earth for 59 years. So I hope people enjoy it. It's an easy read. The font's big. Um, it it's just I put my heart and soul into this book,
Yeah.
and I hope people really enjoy it.
I
I hope
think,
people buy it and give it to their friends.
and you've got a big following, and just pivoting slightly, I want to talk about how one of the reasons that you have such a big following. Obviously, you're very well known within the community, especially in the Los Angeles area and the Magic Castle and everything. But maybe we can talk about the inside the magician studio because you invited me on that, and during the pandemic, so many people set up regular Zoom
Mhm.
to connect with the world. It made sense. Everybody did. I did. It's where Magic TV came from. It came
Mhm.
from there. But very few people have kept it up. When the world opened up, we all kind of said, right, okay, thanks for that. Bye, Zoom. We're off. We're going to see real people. But for the last, what, almost 4 years, whatever it is,
Every Friday.
every single Friday without missing one, you have,
I think I took a Thanksgiving and a Christmas off that
yeah,
fell on a Friday. But other than that, yeah.
yeah.
And I've never
And
repeated a performer.
when I was on there were like a couple of, there were two or three screens full of people, some big names in Magic, and it was unbelievable to see the following that you had on there. And I said to you, I'm going to be, when I'm not gigging, I'm going to be a regular viewer of your Friday sessions because I think they're brilliant. Can you tell people? I mean, I can guess why you set it up, but I'd like to hear it from your own words. Why you set it up, and what made you continue to keep it going, even after a lot of other people have finished. And the format, everything is just so well thought out. Can we talk about that for a minute, John? Would that be okay?
Absolutely. So the world closed down. I'm single. I live by myself. I was lonely. And I missed my castle friends that I would go every Friday to have lunch with.
Mhm.
And I just said, Zoom's a thing now. Let me start the Zoom thing. And I invited some magician friends who were sitting at home with nothing to do to start performing. And I I started just within the Magic Castle community, and then I opened up to the Aaron Tischer's Conjure community, and then it spread out. And I invite every magician who I have on to invite whoever they want. I got room for 100 guests, 100 viewers on my Zoom plan, and I think the biggest was like 64. But what's really cool is, I thought I would run out of magicians. I've never repeated a magician. Tomorrow is George Tovar, and he is performing from the new Mystique Dining in Tempe, Arizona. He is opening that venue, and we're doing an exclusive Zoom from that venue that no one's ever been to before because they just opened the show. And George is going to be performing live from there.
Wow.
But I've had magicians from 15 different countries. I had Harry Lorraine before he passed away. I had David Williamson, Javi Benitez, Woody Aragon, John Armstrong, um, Craig Petty.
I don't,
I've had
but I don't even belong in that.
Rafael Benatar. I've had, I have the list. It's just too many to remember. Hold on, let me see. Adam Wilbur, Adrian LaCroix, uh, Anton Van Helden, Arthur Tribole. I had Banachek. I had Franz Harari. I had David Rangel. I had Marcobi, who I met at FISM. I had Luis Olmedo. I had Michael Close, Michael Shout, Rocco Solano, Rod Chow, Ryan Hayashi, Michael Pasco, Michael Rayner, Larry Wilmore, Jason England, Jason Latimer, Joshua J., Derek Hughes, Doc Eason, Douglas Kahn, Olmac, just Oscar Munoz. The names go on and on and on. And what's amazing is when I invited the magicians to come on my show, not one of them said, well, how much does it pay?
Wow. That's great.
I do it out of the love for performing, out of the love of sharing magic with the world. I've been able to connect people who don't live in Los Angeles, that now they have friends in this tight-knit group of magic lovers. That's the only requirement. You have to have a love for magic.
Wow. And the format of it is you start off by doing a sort of short performance, a 15-20 minute performance, and
I
then
open the doors at 9:30 a.m. LA time, and I let people in, and we just talk. We catch up on our weeks, on our days. We tell stories. And then at 5 minutes after the hour, I introduce the featured performer, and they do how much magic they want to do. You ask, well, how long can I go? I'm like, however long you want to go. So most performers do somewhere between 15 and 25 minutes of close-up magic. And then I start an interview. As a kid, I always watched Inside the Actor's Studio.
yeah.
And so that's why I call it Inside the Magician Studio, because I want my audiences to learn about the man or woman behind the act. How you got your start in magic. Who were some of the magicians who influenced you to make magic your career? And I then end with two questions every time. What is your proudest accomplishment in magic? And what is your definition of magic? And then I cut out their little cut of their definition magic. And I have a site called meaningofmagic.com. where I post all of these magicians' definitions. So you can go and see. Yours is going up there. I don't think I've gotten to it yet, but because you were just on the other week. But, Armando Lucero and Chris Korn and Dave Williamson and Jeff McBride and all these magicians talking about what their definition of magic is. It's so interesting as a character study for me to understand why people choose magic as their art form. And the
Yeah.
common denominator is because audiences, they want to entertain audiences.
Yeah.
And their definitions all have something to do with it, that magic happens in the mind of the spectator.
Yeah.
Magic doesn't happen in a vacuum. It doesn't happen with the cards or coins or whatever the props are.
Yeah.
Magic happens here.
Yeah. I agree completely. I agree completely. And I mean, the format is exceptional. The amount of people that you've had on there is brilliant. And you're not slowing down. I mean, you'll keep going every Friday. Yeah,
I've got the rest of October and November lined up. For anyone who's interested in joining, go to johnkippen.com/studio.
link will be in the description down below.
And
And
you click on there, you'll fill out a form so I can collect your name and email address, and you'll get an automatic reply with the Zoom link.
And I will say, by the time this interview goes out, I'll have put a video up online. You gave me very kind permission to show the session up.
Absolutely.
Because I said to you, I said, this is fantastic. I've got a lot of followers on Magic TV. I'd like to take that session and put it up as a video so that people can see what happens on a Friday so that they can come and join as well, because I thought it was exceptional. I really did. I've done a lot of sort of online things and over the last 4 years, and that genuinely was the most fun I ever had. It was amazing. The people there were wonderful. Everybody was super nice. It's what the magic community should be. Everyone was wonderful and supportive and just fantastic.
One of my proudest accomplishments through Inside the Magician Studio is I reached out to Javi Benitez during the pandemic, and I asked him if he would come on. He said, John, thank you, but I don't know anything. I'm not computer literate. I don't have a Zoom set up. I don't feel comfortable. And I said, Javi, don't worry about it. My audiences are going to be totally engaged by whatever you do. And we'll help you through the whole thing. And finally he said, okay, I'll do it. And he had his laptop screen and he would tilt his laptop down to the table and then back up to his face. And it was low tech. But we had such a wonderful time with Javi. And a couple of weeks later, he called me and he said, John, thank you. I said, for what? He said, you saved my life. I said, I did what? He said, within 2 weeks, every gig I had for the following 6 months to a year canceled. And I didn't know how I was going to put food on the table. I didn't know how I was going to make it through. I was looking at getting a 9-to-5 job. And you taught me that I can perform for a virtual audience. And you gave me the confidence to be able to do that. And I'm actually making more money now than I did having to travel throughout the world performing.
Wow.
And he and I become really close friends over it.
That's amazing.
It's all about giving back to the art that
Yeah.
gives so much to all of us as performers and as magicians and as hobbyists.
Yeah. I agree with that.
That's why I do it. I don't ask for money. Everything is free. It's just, one of my taglines is feed your heart with your art.
And that is one of the reasons that I want people, well, one of many, I've got many reasons, but it's one of the reasons I want people to support you, because it is free. You've been doing it for free. ever since you started it. You're continuing to do it for free, but there's costs involved. You've got to pay the Zoom account every single month. The website fees
Oh yeah.
yeah, no, it's not, and then your time that it takes to communicate with these people, setting it up, creating the Zoom links. There's a lot. There's a lot. People don't realize just how much goes on behind the scenes
Oh
when
yeah. Absolutely. I mean, I have it down to a science now, but I have
imagine.
to book weeks in advance, and I have to have canned videos in case someone doesn't show up. So I have a performance that I can present. That happens every once in a while. Someone has a conflict. Every magician says, I'll do it. But if I get a gig, sorry, I got to take the gig because that's how I make my living. And that's happened to me. And I have a collection of a half a dozen shows that I've recorded that I haven't broadcast, just in case someone cancels on me. So, because I really like the idea of never having a repeat performer.
Wow,
I mean, tomorrow is number 210.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm
It's
so
just the way I give back to the art and to magic that saved my life.
so. I got one more question for you,
Uh-oh.
which is we've talked about how successful you've been both in and out of magic. We've talked about how much you've given back to the community. We've talked about how in demand you are as a performer and a motivational speaker. We've talked about the book. We've talked about how it's going to be amazing and everyone should buy it, regardless of whether they're in magic or not. My question to you is what's next for you, John? And what I mean by that before you answer it is what's left on your magical bucket list that you want to hit? Because if somebody took a snapshot of where you are right now and said you could have everything that this gentleman's had by the end of your career, most people would jump at the chance. What you're telling me that by the end of my career in magic, I could have written a book, set up a platform that's really helped people all over the world, performed regularly at places like the Magic Castle, being booked as a motivational speaker. All of this that you've achieved it's somebody else's dream career, and yet I can tell how ambitious you are. I can tell how driven you are. I can tell that you've only just got started. I know that you've got a lot more that you want to achieve, but you've done so much. So what else? What else is I mean, obviously, what have you got that you want to achieve that you haven't done yet? Is there anything on that magical bucket list that you want to do?
I was tempted to go on Penn and Teller's with us.
Mm.
And unfortunately, um, Angelo Carbone and I are very close. And he sent me an early version of On Edge. And On Edge is basically where you take a deck of cards and you build a card house.
Yes.
And then you strategically remove cards so that all of a sudden it's now standing on one apex. And then you gently push it over. Well, I built my own out of photographs instead. And I tell my journey of the triumph over adversity and going through my brain tumor and losing my parents within a month of each other. And the illusion ends with a picture of me standing with Penn and me standing with Teller as the top. And then I push it over. And I called Angelo and said, Angelo, I built my own version of On Edge, and I want to do it on Fool Us. And he went, oh, I'm sorry. I said, what? He says, I just sent Teller his copy of On Edge 2 weeks ago. He knows how it's done. And I was like, okay. You know, I mean, I've met both of them. I've had meals with both of them. Do I need to be on national television? No.
Mm.
I filmed a documentary called John's Ultimate Illusion. It's with co-starring one of my closest, dearest friends, Jamie Lee Curtis.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, and it's won 4 or 5 Best Documentary Awards, and it's a 15-minute documentary.
I love how you just left it till near the end of the interview just to drop that one out. I mean, it just shows that we've not even scratched the surface here.
I become a life coach. I have a life coaching practice that I'm trying to get off the ground because I only get to speak once a month if I'm lucky. But as a life coach, I can reach out and help hundreds of people an hour at a time.
I could see you being an incredible life coach. I know a lot of life coaches over here in the UK. You'd be amazing.
Yeah. It's just finding the right opportunity to get my name out there. And that's another thing the book I hope will do is to present me not only as a speaker, but as a coach.
Yeah.
So, I used to have a podcast where I interviewed Monty Gilbert. For those who don't know Monty, he was born without hands, but
Yes.
he performs amazing sleight of hand. I I have interviewed lots of people with craniofacial differences and talk about their journey, trying to share everybody's passion for living. Those of us who have overcome whatever life has gotten in our way
Yeah.
and taught people how to go right through it as opposed to trying to skirt around it. Um, I'm always coming up with creative ideas. And some I follow and some I let sit on a shelf until all of a sudden I have an opportunity to do something. So,
Wow.
I'm joyful.
Yeah, I can tell.
I have joy in my life.
Yeah,
And that's the meaning of life, is to live life on your own terms with joy.
that's very, very true. That
And
is
so
very,
many of us have never really experienced joy, especially on a day-to-day basis. Sure, we all have stressful times and we all have setbacks. I have strategies in my book on how to shift your mindset
yeah.
because it's all about mindset.
I think a lot of magicians, what they do is they dwell on the things that go wrong, especially pros and people that make their living from magic. They dwell on the things that go wrong and they don't have time or they don't spend time celebrating their successes. It's always a case of, oh, that didn't go right. That didn't go right. Oh, why am I not getting enough gigs? Or whatever it may be. And it's not about, well, actually, this went bloody amazing. This went fantastic. You know,
Yeah.
and I think that that's a problem with a lot of people in this community. That and imposter syndrome. I'll tell you something. The single biggest thing that people ask me about on this channel over and over again is imposter syndrome, people getting into magic, and
But they're not good enough, or why
I
should
don't
they
feel like
be?
I'm good enough. I'm not going to perform to people because it happens all of the time, John, all of the time. I hear it daily.
That's not those words are not in my vocabulary.
Mm, yeah,
There is no room in your life for imposter syndrome. Period.
yeah,
You are good enough. If you put your mind to whatever you put your mind to, you will be successful in. Maybe not immediately, may take a year, may take 5 years, may take a lifetime, but the journey is where the joy is, not in the destination.
yeah,
And if you look at life's challenges as an opportunity to succeed and learn, the world is your oyster.
yeah. That's very true. Wow, this has been look, I came in coming into this interview thinking this is going to be a really good interview. This is going to be great. This is going to be very different to the sort of interview I do where I talk about the tricks and blah 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 blah. I don't think we've mentioned tricks at all really that much. I thought it was going to be a good interview. My God, it's been even better than I thought. This has been one of my favorite interviews that I've ever done on this channel, John. It really has. And you are incredibly inspirational. You really are. And you continue to inspire people. You continue to bring people together. And I think with the imminent release of your book, that's going to be even more prevalent. I think that, you're going to be in demand. Let me ask you one more question before we wrap this whole thing up. Do you lecture? Are you available to be booked for lectures?
I've never put together a lecture because, again, my sleight of hand on a scale of 1 to 10 is a 4.
Yeah, but I think like a convention, like somewhere, over here in the UK, you might have heard of it. We've got the Blackpool Magic Convention.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, they constantly have lectures on things that aren't anything to do with magic or sleight of hand or whatever it may be. Like I remember a couple of years ago, they got the boss of Britain's Got Talent come in and just talk about how to, kind of do. I think that your style of lecture would be, just talking, just having the conversation, just talking like this about what you've been through and what people can learn from that. If I were you, I'd genuinely consider that, like
Yeah.
offering that out because I think there's a lot of conventions around the world that would book something like that in a heartbeat.
I reached out to Stan Allen at one point to see if that was something that he was interested in booking me. I said I would do it for free, and maybe that was my mistake. But, being in those general sessions at Magic Live, sometimes you sit there and you go, ah, when is this going to be over? You know? And I'm a creative problem solver. I analyze what happens to me and I figure out ways to make myself relevant.
Yeah.
And that's the key to success in anything you do, anything you put your mind to. So,
Yeah. I can tell there's going to be a lot more coming from you, John. And genuinely, this has been one of my favorite interviews. And I want to thank you. Said it at the beginning of the interview. I'm going to say it again now. Thank you for coming on. Thank you for spending time with me. Thank you for inviting me on the Inside the Magician Studio. Thank you for everything. I really appreciate it. And I want people that are watching this interview to do a couple of things for me. So first of all, leave a comment down below because John will see those and let him know what you thought of the interview. I loved it. Second of all, register for the mailing list for Inside the Magician Studio, which is very simply going onto the link down below, put in your name, put in your email address, and you're just going to get the Zoom link every week and you can come and join. It's a fantastic community that John's built and it's continuing to grow and grow and grow. And then finally, and probably most importantly, keep an eye out. And as soon as the book, I will be reviewing the book anyway, but excuse me, as soon as the book comes out that John has written, which hopefully will be at the end of October,
beginning into that December 1st.
Oh, sorry, December 1st. That's right. Um, Go and buy that immediately because we should all support this man. He's done a lot for Magic. He continues to do a lot for Magic. He's brought a lot of people together, and I think it's the least we can do, John. I really do. But one more time, I want to say thank you for coming on Magic TV. Thank you for sharing so many wonderful stories with us. And I'm not going to wish you continued success because I know it's going to happen because you're just wired that way. You've got the right blueprints. So I hope you enjoy your continued success that you're going to be having.
Thank you, my friend. I follow you and the antics of you and Ryland, and I enjoy your videos. I watch almost every one of them, and I own a lot of your magic.
Well,
I do it all, but I'm a huge supporter of
I
your
really,
creativity, and um, I admire your out of the box thinking. You know, with all of the products that you released and continue to release, and I'm excited to see what you have coming up next.
thank you. I've got some good stuff coming up. So I just, yeah, I just carry on doing my thing. And, I spend most of my time now following Ryland around the country, just taking his show and being his roadie, but it's fun. Whatever I end up doing, it's fun. Uh,
Yeah.
but,
Is there anything better in life than spending quality time with your son?
no, not at all. Not at all. It's,
Doing what you both love for as long as they are interested in it?
yep, it's fantastic. I don't take it for granted. So many magicians say to me, "Oh, I wish my son was into magic. He can't stand it." And I'm like, I understand how lucky I am. So, it's amazing. It really is. It's fantastic.
Well, thank you again from the bottom of my heart, Greg. This has been a wonderful conversation, and I love talking about myself. So what can I say? But um,
Well, it's
I'm
great seeing
humble,
that.
yeah.
Well,
But seriously, this has been an amazing. I don't know what time it is, but it doesn't matter.
who cares?
Um, you'll edit this anyway. So,
Yeah, I will.
but
And I'm gonna wrap this up for everyone now by saying, like I said, leave a comment down below, like the video, um, make sure you're on the mailing list. You'll see me there because I'm going to be there as often as I can. And I'll be back next Saturday with another Talk Magic. But until then, on behalf of the entire Magic TV audience, John, one more time, thank you so much.
it was my pleasure.
And guys, on behalf of John, thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you again next Saturday. My name's Craig Petty. Obviously, this is Magic TV. That is John Kippen, and I'll see you again soon, right here on Magic TV.